theme or color palette, or, other planners geared towards, a lighter color palette. And that's the kind of weddings they focus on. And others geared towards, bright and vibrant, bold colors. And those are the types of clients they service. I love being able to do it all. I love being able to play with all of the colors, the different themes, the different attitudes. And I think it's what makes my business what it is, because I can help anybody.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Here for the Health of It podcast. We are Columbia's hottest and fastest growing podcast, and we're glad you joined us today. If you're willing, give us a review, give us a like, subscribe on Instagram. We're there, Here for the Health of It podcast, it's called, or on whatever platform that you're listening to this podcast. So we have a guest today who is a wedding planner, Parris Balazs, like Bellagio, you told me, right?
Balazs.
And she's the owner of Eventfully Chic. I practice
Guys,
that.
Unbelievable.
I have a hard time. We don't really use.
We're not editing that either. Not a Canadian word.
By Parris, and you can go check her out. Maybe tell us you're located in Chapin, right?
Yes.
And tell us where can they find you on their Instagram or Facebook or any of those?
Eventfully Chic by Parris on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, and I do work out of Chapin, but I do cover the Midlands.
And it's 2 R's, correct?
Correct.
Parris.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks for being on here.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us what got you into being a wedding planner.
So I spent nearly a decade as the marketing director, executive director, different higher level positions for a multi-state law firm. I was in the real estate realm as a title insurance agent, worked with real estate agents, mortgage professionals. With that came a lot of events to cater to those, the real estate professionals. And then I guess in 2018, I was expecting a ring myself. And I kind of said, this would be fun to do this as a career. I've planned events for a decade. Let's turn this to the wedding market. So essentially I became my own first client. I realized after booking all of my own wedding vendors in the first 30 days of being engaged that was kind of pat on the back worthy. And I said, I have something here. And there we went. Took off.
Cool. And so how long were you waiting for a ring? What made it the time that you were ready for a ring?
I would say maybe halfway through 2018. We had been dating for closer to 3 years. I wouldn't say I gave him an ultimatum, but I kind of just did, drop it that I'm expecting this by the end of the year. And actually we were at a real estate related event, a holiday ball, and I was just convinced that it was coming that night. I wanted it to be a big public thing, because I'm just that kind of person. And it did not, and I was not happy. But lo and behold, there was this big thing planned already, and we got engaged 3 days later.
Nice.
So that was a quiet ride home.
Yeah. But it's funny. We look back on it and laugh.
So I guess walk somebody through the process of somebody's getting married, they reach out to you, kind of what's your step-by-step to see if they're a good fit or a good client for you? So
the first step, I have a contact form on my website. It's under the Connect tab, and it allows me to collect general information. Bride's name, fiance's name, if you're getting married, or the date, where you're getting married, anticipated guest count, and a budget range. That helps me to decide if I'm going to be a good fit for them, because there's a certain price per person. I don't like to give a minimum budget, but a price per person that you need to meet in order to achieve what you're wanting to with your wedding. I include to kind of, what do you envision for your wedding, and tell me something fun about you too, so I can kind of grasp their personalities also. Sure. But for the time being, I'm a fairly new mom, so I'm personally focusing on more of the local market. Closer to Columbia, the better. I'm not going to the outskirts of South Carolina or out of state for the time being, so that helps as well.
Nice. That was one of my questions, was like, have you done destination weddings, or that's just not a focus here? Is this mostly just local? It's not a focus as far as destination, like tropical Jamaica. I mean, they have great travel agents, all-inclusive packages. You really just can't beat the price to have a planner here that, travel reimbursement, flights, lodging accommodations once there. I usually suggest, if it is truly a destination wedding, that they use the people who are there. They know the area. They get the all-inclusive prices.
I have gone to, I'll entertain Georgia, North Carolina. I've done a few weddings there, but that's about as far as I've gone.
Okay. And then what locally, like what are the hot venues? What are the places that people are looking to get married or they always stay booked?
Well, gosh, there's so many great venues. I personally have done a ton of Lace House weddings. The Lace House is actually closed down for the next year or two for a big facelift. We're really excited to all see what happens there. But as far as my weddings, I've probably done the most at the Lace House. I guess recent weddings, the Hampton Preston Mansion, a part of historic Columbia. That was last weekend. That was a blast. The weekend before, we were at 701 Whaley.
Yeah.
A few weeks before that, Stone River, actually a couple of times in the fall, winter time frame. But gosh, there's honestly, there's so many great venues. I can't just name a few.
So it's just it's like a really good spot as far as Columbia goes. Like there's a lot of options in for people.
Yes. So much to offer and to cater to really any vision.
Now, do you suggest if somebody gets engaged, what are some of the first questions they should answer? Like what are the small details? Because I imagine if they're stuck on a venue, then they really can't set a date because it's based on the venue. Or if they're stuck on a date, like, is there something that you really kind of steer people to focus on early on in the engagement?
Well, I always say you can't have a date unless you have a venue. Because if you have your heart stuck on a venue, then you're going to need to be flexible with your date.
Right.
If your heart is stuck on your date, you're going to need to be flexible with your venue. But those two things come first. We really can't start booking other vendors, your caterer, your bar service, your DJ service, your band, until you have the date and the venue. As far as kind of how I start a consultation, I collect information about the wedding party. Sometimes there's no wedding party. Sometimes the biggest wedding party I had was 18 or 20 people. I mean, just a huge wedding party.
Oh,
That
just
plays
a wedding party?
Just the wedding party.
Holy cow.
That plays a huge factor when it comes to budget. And then, of course, we talk about budget. What's your range? We could come in a little bit lower. We can come in a little bit higher. Is it firm? Is it flexible? My former clients can tell anyone that I'm a stickler with budget. I think it's important to set a goal and to stick to that goal.
There, yeah.
It's so easy to blow out your budget. Well, let's just go ahead. And then, my goal, I don't want them to start their marriage with financial hardships that they were not expected for.
Right.
So I will say that budget is my number one thing. And if they say, Parris, it's worth it. It's worth this, $2,000 budget increase or whatever it may be. Then I say, okay, I'm gonna write it down.
Yeah.
But let's do it.
Yeah. Cause when you really think about it, there's a lot of moving parts as far as like you have to organize a band, a DJ, and if they're not available, you might have a venue, you might now have a date, but then if there's a certain band, is there any behind the scenes stuff where you're like, all right, I slide this guy $100 bill and I can get access to somebody? Or do you not want to share that?
Well, I mean,
or keep that behind the scenes.
I don't know if I fully understand the question, but honestly, everybody works together as a team. That's what I love about what I do and about the industry, because
Sure.
we all have the same end goal, and it's to make sure that the bride and the groom have the best wedding, the wedding
Right.
of their dreams, and that the families have a great experience, because they deserve a day to relax as well.
I guess I was thinking like if my heart was set on some DJ, I don't know any local DJs, but he already was booked, but I have my venue, I have my date, I'm not changing any of that. Is there any way to like go to the DJ and say, hey, got a client over here that's willing to offer you X amount more or anything like that? Or is that not a thing? Or maybe it's a thing.
I've never done that. I can say that there are quite a few DJ services that have multiple DJs under their umbrella. So there has been an opportunity, if a wedding has been booked, just to simply reassign the DJ.
Gotcha.
If that other wedding does not know the DJs personally and did not personally request anybody, then they can switch that assignment in order to accommodate, for example, my booking that does want, DJ Joe or whoever it may be.
Right. Okay. And then is there a budget range that you like a sweet spot? I don't know. Like sometimes I think if somebody comes in with a budget that's just not realistic, that wouldn't be something that you probably would entertain. But then there's probably budgets is there a budget that's too high where you're like, that sounds almost insane to organize? Or are you like the type of person who likes to tackle a challenge like that?
Oh, I love a challenge.
Yeah.
And I love a high budget just because, not only does it create a luxury experience, but it's just me with a million different moving parts and lots of vendors to work with. And I, already said it, but it comes down to creating an experience.
Yeah.
And if the budget is there, then you can truly create an experience instead of just having an event.
Just allows a lot of flexibility with what you like to do.
Mm-hmm. And to create it your own.
Nice.
Make it your own day.
And what are the common budgets that people are throwing out there nowadays? Randy did his for like $102.
I'm curious in the averages in that kind of range of like, let's say 20 grand is the average wedding, but within 10 to 13 grand, you're still within the norm.
Honestly, it comes down to a per person. If you have a 50-person wedding, a lot lower of a budget than a 350-person wedding. So that's kind of where I learned to work in if it's a good fit for me or not. Usually if we're working with less than $150, $175 per person, I'm not a good fit, and I could refer that out to somebody that is a better fit from a cost standpoint.
Gotcha. What was that? That was 150 to 175
on the low end.
Okay.
On the low end,
Yep.
I am most comfortable when there's a minimum of 200
Yep.
per person. Usually, I explain that will help you get all of the essentials that you need to make a wedding day a wedding day.
Right.
And so there would be what's considered a small wedding, average wedding, large wedding. Can you walk me through the numbers on that? Like a 20-person wedding is obviously a small wedding. A 5,000 person is obviously a big wedding, but I'm not sure where the average rolls in there.
I'm going 150.
I'm saying
wedding.
250 is average.
Average is 150. I think that COVID had a lot to do with that, and people learned how to cut back on their guest list. My general rule of thumb is if you don't see them in your life in 10 years, they don't need to be at your wedding. So 150 people is average. The biggest wedding I've done was around 350 people. The biggest non-wedding event that I've done was closer to 600 people. And then I've had smaller, more intimate ceremonies. I believe the lowest I've done is around 50 people. Actually, it's coming up in a couple months, so I haven't technically done it yet. But 50 people. And then I do have sort of custom pricing on the lower end for what we would call a mini-moni, mini ceremony.
Nice.
And that's where it's really just bridegroom and family. We're talking 10, 15 people.
Nice. And go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So if someone comes to you and they're like, all right, I want to have this many people, and I'm guessing their guest list gets bigger and bigger as time goes on, because I've seen that many times. How big of a spread is there? What does that look like when someone says, I'm going to have 100 in their initial planning, and then they come back to you 3 months later and say, all right, it's going to be 180 now?
So one of two things: we either have to make significant cuts, substantially increase the budget, or I give them advice on how to get your guest list back down in a very nice way.
Yeah. I was wondering about the organization side of this. Like, what is your personality type? Have you ever done any of that? Like Enneagram or disc profile or
Type A?
Type A, like walk me through your methodology of, I just feel like the level of stress that probably you have to be able to tolerate and then like organize through. How do you do that? Are you a paper person? Are you a digital person? Or do you have some sort of program that you like to use?
Well, for day in and day out stuff, I use just Google Sheets. It's collaborative. So usually my clients just follow along with my planning efforts. I input everything, into what I call their master wedding workbook. It has several tabs and such. And they are welcome to, add their own notes if they want. But usually, I just input all the data and the need to know, the budgeting, the deposits, the date the check was mailed, all of that information. In terms of just kind of having a million things to do all the time. I come from a background where at one point I had, 5 or 6 different jobs, and there were so many different lanes open, and you had to give every single lane 110%, and the math just doesn't add up. But in a sense, that conditioned me, it really did, over the years, to be able to do what I do now and to have that kind of, I call it, mental power or mental focus to put into one lane. My husband says superwoman, but I mean, I really think that over the years doing that kind of work conditioned me to be successful in what I'm doing now.
Yeah. I feel like it's one of those, like when I was thinking about what you do day in and day out, I was thinking, I don't know how many people that could pull that off. Just the fact of like how important the day is to the couple and the amount of pressure that goes into just them expecting a dream wedding and 4,000 things could go wrong at any moment during it, right? A priest doesn't show up, or like the flowers are wrong, or any of that stuff. Like, what have you personally had any like crazy breakdowns where it was like, this is too much?
No, I think that, and this was extremely unfortunate, but I think that, the worst thing that has happened, which was obviously completely out of my control, is the pastor actually passed away the night before the wedding. And it's my job to do everything I possibly can for the bride and the groom. But the night before the wedding, there's, the cake is made, the catering, the food is made, the flowers are prepared, they're ready, to be delivered. And so that one was one that was just personally difficult for me because they had to move forward with their wedding day, but it was not a wedding. There was no wedding. They did not get married. It was instead a celebration of life because the officiant was also a very close friend. So that was difficult, but the day ended in laughter, in prayer, and it was good to see, something good come out of the day for them.
Yeah.
And all right, so talk to me about mothers and mother-in-laws.
I love them.
All right. Because that, to me, when I think about if I was going to be a wedding planner, that would be the most stressful thing, is the mothers and mother-in-laws coming, telling me what they think it should be, and then the bride with a totally different view of it, and you kind of get stuck in the middle.
So what I usually do, I have not had any bad situations with moms or mothers-in-law. Usually if I get a sense that, I have a conversation with the bride, okay, and she likes how it's sounding, and then, I get a response a week later, well, actually, mom said da-da-da-da-da-da. When that happens, I say, okay, well, let's regroup and all get together, the three of us. We need to be on the same page, playing the back and forth and the middleman. I've never met mom, and so that's kind of how we approach that. My wedding last weekend, love to send this to them. That was Mama Janet. And, she is Mama Janet. I will always know her as Mama Janet. She came to all of the meetings. She was very involved. And I mean, it just, everything went great.
Nice.
And because there's so many reality TV shows about weddings. Mm-hmm. I think there was one called Bridezilla.
Don't you watch Say Yes to the Dress? Isn't that one you?
Oh, is that one?
The one you record?
I haven't seen that one, but I imagine it's probably pretty good. And I think it makes the idea of having a wedding seem just so stressful. And maybe it's just making for good reality TV, but I'm not sure if you know a person and then you know them throughout their wedding and then you know them afterwards, what's the level of stress and change that you see in that person?
I get asked all the time how many bridezillas I've worked with. And so far, my answer every time is none. I mean, I believe that communication is the key of all things successful. I am an over communicator. If we have a meeting, the things that you need to remember to get back to me on, or the things that I'll circle back with you on, that's going to go in an email within a couple of days after our meeting. I've never worked with a bridezilla because I think that miscommunication is the root of all conflict. So avoid that, be proactive, be communicative, and get ahead of the issues. There usually aren't issues, at least for me.
Yeah, I was wondering about groomzillas. Is that a thing? Like, have you had any difficult grooms?
One.
Yes.
Me, a couple of the local planners, we kind of joke and we say, if the groom is the one that is leading all of everything when it comes to wedding planning, like you just like, oh, all right, proceed with caution.
Yes.
Just one, and he dubbed himself the Groomzilla, so it's fine if he hears this.
Have you ever seen the movie Bride Wars?
Is that a movie?
I just watched it. So I've been, and I didn't watch it purposely.
Yeah.
But at the gym, they always have a different movie on. So then if it's like a cardio day, then I just run on there, but I watch whatever movie's playing. So I've watched movies that I've never have seen or would have seen. But there was all this competition between the two brides for who was going to get the venue and whose friends were going to show up, and they ended up having it on the same day. Is this all just TV stuff?
I haven't seen that. So I can't say. What I do like to watch, and surprisingly, my husband likes to watch it with me. But it's Married at First Sight, and so they get to know the other person, through a frosted wall. They can't see each other until they get engaged, and obviously not real life, but that's kind of the only wedding related show I've watched lately.
Okay. Have you done any theme weddings, like Halloween or like anime or any weird stuff?
Pirates.
Pirates.
Usually I do
tuxedo.
one Halloween wedding a year. The theme can be different. Last year it was Till Death Do Us Part. Lots of Edgar Allan Poe stuff thrown in there. And then this year I'm so excited because it's so different. It's Halloween weekend and it's a non-traditional Wiccan pagan wedding. So not usually, what I would do, but so many, it's just different. There's so many different things, and incorporating their personalities into every part of the day, again, creating that experience.
Yeah. So what's your role wedding day? Like is that your it's game day. You wake up at 5 a.m., you go through your warm-ups, stretch, or what is
picking your outfit for the day?
So what a wedding day looks like, I usually prepare as far as packing the car and everything. The day before, there's the rehearsal. We transfer everything to my car, and then I go ahead and get everything that I need the night before. It's better for me that way to know that I'm prepared. I can drive away in the morning and head on to the wedding fully prepared with everything that I need. Waking up at 5 a.m. No, it's normal time. Usually get on site mid to late morning, and it's normally a 10 to 12 hour day.
Just cranking 10 to 12 hours. And is there a lot of running back and forth, like bride to groom to groomsman to photographer to cake?
Yes. Last weekend, again at Robert Mills House and Garden, I clocked over 20,000 steps in under 11 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this keeps you in shape. Is this your workout? Like, do you have specific workouts for this?
I do try to make sure I go to the gym at least 3 times a week on the week of a wedding, because it just helps make the day easier. Right. But if I have a lot of desk work that week and, very stationary all week, I can tell. I mean, it makes a huge difference. So especially when I have a wedding coming up, I try to stay active that week.
Nice.
What should a wedding planner wear on the day?
It depends on the season.
Probably white.
Usually,
a white dress is your standard.
My go-to is black pants, dark colored blouse, or black jumper.
Nice. So you don't generally wear any sort of dress. You more so want to be like seen but not seen.
It's just black usually.
Yeah.
My team, again, last weekend there were 5 of us for most of the day, and I try to wear something a little bit different just for the purpose of, instead of go find the wedding planner, she's wearing black and everybody's wearing black. So last weekend it had silver, polka dots, just something to distinguish me just a little bit, but we try to keep it basic and black.
That's smart.
How many people are on your team?
I just brought on 2 new excellent girls this month because we're growing and we need more coverage. So we're up to 5 of us.
Awesome. And then what, do you guys only do one wedding a weekend, correct?
For the most part. To kind of put it into perspective, in 2021, I did about 10 weddings all year. I was still working a full-time job at that point, and so this was my kind of fun weekend, what I love to do thing. I went full-time with this the beginning of last year, 2022, and because of that, kind of felt like, I need to make sure I say yes, 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 yes. No limitations. This is all I'm doing now. Yes, let's do it.
Yeah. And
just in the matter of September and October of last year, just a few months ago, I did 10 in under 60 days.
Wow.
And my team said otherwise, but I think it was just a little bit too much. There was a three-peat, a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Bam, bam, bam. Each one was 150 people. And It just so happened that there was a little bit of drama, so we just all, at the end of the day on Sunday, we were like, dragging a little bit. And I said, okay, I don't want to do that to myself or my team. We don't want to feel that way at the end of the day. So also being a new mom, I didn't like the feeling of, feeling so burnt out. So I did say moving forward, at least this year, while my baby is so young, that we're only taking one a weekend. There are a couple of special circumstances. I have a sunrise wedding, so that's a little different. I have a back-to-back that weekend, but again, if it's not a full day kind of deal, then maybe, but shooting for one a weekend.
Nice.
I don't know what a sunrise wedding is.
It's at Riverbank Zoo, and she's getting married when the sun comes up.
So probably,
and the roosters
if it's in the
crow.
summer, that's 6:30 a.m.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
I'm really
what do you wear to
excited.
that? And does the party go all day?
No, I think they'll clear out of there early afternoon. It's just gonna be wedding, breakfast, maybe a mimosa bar. The zoo, you can do a live encounter with an animal, an activity. Last time it was the giraffe feeding, but it's not an all day.
Sweet. What makes like a dream client for you? Like what type of person, or like how, if you could describe your dream couple for you, like what would that be? So that we can train our listeners. Like real decisive?
No, I mean, I love to help anybody. It's what I do. My job is to take stress off of your plate, and I will help anybody as long as the budget is reasonable. There's no particular, theme or color palette or, other planners geared towards, a lighter color palette. And that's the kind of weddings they focus on. And others geared towards, bright and vibrant, bold colors. And those are the types of clients they service. I love being able to do it all. I love being able to play with all of the colors, the different themes, the different attitudes. And I think it's what makes my business what it is, because I can help anybody.
Do you make one of those like swatch boards?
Yes, we do talk about colors. Usually that's one of my first questions. Do you have colors picked out, or would you like help establishing a color palette? Sometimes if it would be hard to fit their colors together, I'll suggest throwing in another neutral or, well, let's expand from these two to maybe these 3 or 4. But most of the time they have their colors picked out. I want white, ivory, sage, and cream. And from there we can build an inspiration board.
Yeah. What's the most popular color right now in the wedding world?
I think it depends on the season. Fall is your terracotta, sunset terracotta.
What is terracotta? Is that orange?
Terracotta is like a reddish orange.
Yeah.
And it's centered around your earthy tones.
Yeah.
So your browns, your reds, your oranges, very fall.
Yep. Throw a couple Capricorns or pumpkins on the table. No.
I have not, no.
My wedding colors were orange and blue because that's my favorite hockey team, the Edmonton Oilers growing up, were orange and blue. And my wife was a good sport. I think she changed the names of the orange to like a different, I don't know, what would be a different
terracotta
name for an orange? Terracotta. So maybe we did have terracotta and what's another name for blue?
Royal blue and terracotta.
We made it fancy somehow.
A sports theme. So I guess with you getting married, tell us about that experience.
Well, there is a venue in Lexington, 12 Oak Estate.
Mm-hmm.
I was the first bride to get married there.
That's cool.
So that was really neat. It's come, a long way since. They've added to it, and it keeps on evolving in, wedding fashion. Venues are always added to as the years pass, but it was really neat to be the first couple to get married there.
Did you do big, small?
100 people.
100?
I think 100 is a good number. Personally, that's what I feel personally. When you get up into these several hundreds of people for your wedding, maybe with that bride, it wouldn't stress her out, but with me, I wanted to make sure that I, talk to everybody at my wedding, thank them for coming. And that was hard for me, even with 100 people. Yeah. So I can't imagine, 250, 300 people. But, I've worked with brides that say, if they want to talk to me, they can come find me on the dance floor. If not, see you next time. Thanks for coming. And they're fine with that.
Sweet. And I was wondering what the most extravagant things that you're seeing in the wedding world now. Like I know that like the 360 camera has become a thing where like somebody will set up a little booth and have that. Is there anything else that's out there that's wild?
Colors are coming in big. I attended a wedding convention a few months ago, and bright and bold.
Just like neons and stuff?
I wouldn't say maybe some, but more jewel tones. Your emerald green, your royal blue, your magentas. I love color, so I'm really excited about that. I'm actually doing a styled shoot at Hartley House next month, and
Cool.
From here, actually, from this, I'm going to a rental company to play with linen colors and different china. Aside from that, live painters are big. It's one of the things that if I would have known when I got married that was a thing in Colombia, not just a thing, but an affordable thing that you can do.
Yeah.
I would have done that. But you don't know what you don't know when it comes to planning your wedding.
What does a live painter do? They just paint a scene from your wedding?
Yes. So you get to
Really?
choose your scene. It can be the kiss. It can be the recessional where the bride and the groom are exiting the ceremony. It can be your first dance. It can be, a private moment elsewhere.
That's
You get to
cool.
choose your scene. And they paint it live. It also serves as entertainment. So
Yeah.
guests get to see this beautiful painting come to life over the hours of the evening. And then usually the painter, wraps it up, takes it with them, finishes it at a studio, and then ships it to them.
That's awesome.
That is cool.
Is there somebody in Colombia that does that?
Yes.
There is.
Several.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Now, I guess, are they taking a photo of that moment and then painting it? Because I can't imagine them just like seeing it and then painting for 4 hours.
The one that I work with the most usually does capture the scene just with his cell phone, and he goes off of that and he paints, and oh my gosh, the detail. It looks like a real picture by the time he's done. It's incredible. He's so talented. And then I worked with one last weekend. I believe he did take a picture, but he starts just off of his point of view. And so he painted the ceremony. And to see it, come to life, it's spectacular.
Now, what about foods? What are the, with the go-tos, just like a steak option, a vegan option, or like a vegetarian option, and a seafood?
Usually my clients opt for heavy hors d'oeuvres or station style. So that's where we put different stations around the room. It could be your, charcuterie display, and then your shrimp and grits station. And then an active, station where a meat of some sort is being carved and served.
Wow.
That would be considered small plate style, small bite style. Sometimes they still use a regular dinner-sized plate. It depends on if it's an all-seated dinner or if it's more of a cocktail-style reception where there's less seating, more cocktail tables to keep guests moving around. But I have not done a lot of plated dinners. They're still very popular. I do think they're kind of fading out because today's brides don't necessarily, want to get everybody together just to sit down and, stare at people from across the room while they're eating dinner. Yep.
I always wondered about that. I think I have seen that moving towards like not the traditional like wait and everybody gets served sort of thing. That's nice. That's good.
All right. I just have so many questions about so many things. I'm all over the place.
I love it.
So I want to talk about wedding dresses. I feel like for a long time it was just the traditional really long with a long train. And you had somebody who was standing behind you picking it up. And then it seemed like for a while, then it went to shorter cut dresses. And then it went to backless dresses. And I don't know where we're at now.
Guy really knows style.
I think I've seen it all. I think it really comes down to what the bride feels confident in, what she feels bridal in, what she feels beautiful in. My only advice that I give them when it comes to a wedding dress is try on all of the main styles. Try on your ball gown, try on your strapless, try on your open back, try on the main 5 or 6 styles, because you may be surprised with what you end up loving. And obviously, we want to get married in a dress that we love.
Yeah. Yeah.
And is it always white still? Because for a while I heard cream was coming in.
I've had a lot of brides with ivory. Not so much cream, but ivory. Usually when the dress is ivory, white is off limits because we don't want the ivory to look, like it has a yellow undertone.
Yeah.
And,
So
back to my...
You send out an email to everybody? You're not allowed to wear any white at all?
Not to guests. Usually that's, with the bartending service, we make sure that the bar is ivory and not white. Linens are ivory and not white. Things like that.
Do you stock a lot of this stuff? Like those sort of things, like linens and silverware and plates, and no, it's always just you have your people that you coordinate.
Yes. With those types of items, we would use a rental company. I do, however, keep a stock of like cake stands, various cake stands, and if they want to do a dessert bar, like a display, trays, cupcake stands, risers, stuff like that, because oftentimes it can be rented for a fee with the baker, but so many times it has to be returned. And that either gives them something else to do after the wedding or me something else to do after the wedding. So what I do is charge just a very nominal fee to cover it in case it's broken or dropped or whatever, bring it in for them, and then I take it away.
Nice. How many companies do you have to coordinate like for a wedding? Is it?
The average, I would say, is 12 vendors,
Wow.
but I've gone up towards 20.
That's just, I feel like that's a lot of emails, phone calls, texts. And you like that.
Yeah. My timelines are very detailed. On average, my timelines are 6 or 7 pages, and that's just the timeline. Separate from that, we have the entire layout. I usually joke and say, I would be shocked if any of the vendors had a question or, something came up, they wanted clarification. If they could not look in what I send out, which I usually send out 2 to 4 weeks out from the wedding date.
Yeah.
If they could not look in there and find it, I would be shocked. If they can't, they have my number. They can call me. I have an answer. But it's so detailed that I don't get a lot of calls because what they need is right there.
Yeah. So you just made it super simple. That's awesome.
That's the job.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And I know there's usually gifts that you give each of the attendees. What does that look like now? Sometimes they're like a bag of nuts or something that's sitting on each plate.
The guest favor.
Guest favor. Maybe that's what I'm looking for.
I had a bride email me about this morning. Well, what are some ideas? Oh gosh, there are so many. I mean, literally hundreds of different things that you could do as your guest favor. What I typically suggest is to use the internet as inspiration, but find something. I feel like a guest favor is meant to bring out you and your future spouse's personalities. And I send along some of my favorite examples. So for example, last April, it was a beautiful garden themed wedding. And she had these lollipops, and in the center of the lollipops was a bag of seeds. And so they eat the lollipop and they take the seeds home and plant them in their garden. So that's the favor, something that they can use beyond just the night. But I mean, if they do like a cookie or a donut, that's perfectly fine too. That's the favor. But I usually say, use something that they can take home and keep a part of you in their house. My husband and I, we love oysters. So we did, oyster knives and put "Our world is our oyster" burn engraved on them. So little things like that. It should have a part of you and your guests get to take that home.
Have you had any issues with wedding gifts, like being stolen or being misplaced or anything chaotic like that?
It does happen. I've heard of it happening. I don't think, to my knowledge, it's happened at any of my weddings. Having said that, I always suggest, we want to believe that would not happen. A wedding guest would not do that. But, maybe
right.
The +1 with your wedding, you just never know. And so
Sure.
what I do is I never, ever, ever put the cards and the gifts table close to any exit. It needs to be closer to a vendor, whether that's the caterer or the bar service, just within a few feet of one of those vendors, and do not put it near an exit point where it can grow legs and walk away.
Right. Because I feel like that's a lot of cash and.
Mm-hmm.
And what's a normal price point for a gift?
I think it can depend. A general rule of thumb, though, is around $50
per person, or just in general,
or per couple.
Like a $50 gift, a gift valued in $50
Gotcha.
minimum, I would say.
Okay, nice. Since having a child, how's that changed things?
It's been amazing. I mean, motherhood is everything and more than I would have expected. She's my world, but I still work, very hard. This business is a priority, as is she. Having said that, it's only, fair to her and myself to keep life as balanced as it can be, being a new mom. And so that is the reason for cutting down to a goal of one wedding weekend and having at least 1 weekend a month with family.
Great. And then what's the cool wedding songs that are out there now? Anything new, fresh, or anything old that's coming back?
I mean, I hear it all. Naturally, you hear the same.
Is there any strange ones then? Anything that you're like, ooh, that's not really a wedding song?
I think it depends on the couple. We always have a meeting with the DJ. What do you want to hear? What are your must plays?
Yep.
What's on your do not play list? Obviously you don't want you and your ex-boyfriend's song to play at your wedding. So we put that on the do not play list. But I think it all depends on the couple, what they want to hear. The DJ comes up with a playlist based on that. I have, a new wedding. She wants all 90s pop. The DJ is going to play 90s pop.
Right.
Versus, 70s rock and roll. Like that's what it's going to be. And then another popular thing are couples, when they send out their invitations, they'll include a card, an insert that says, what do you want to hear, to make sure that every guest hears a song that they want to hear.
Really?
Yeah.
Has social media messed with anything like choreographed dances and TikToks and things that are happening at weddings that you're seeing more?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, a popular one is the bippity boppity boo. Have you seen that one? Where the bridesmaids are all together and they swing their arms and they jump and they're all, in their dresses.
Yeah.
So that's one that I love to see. But TikTok is taking over the bridal world. There's just so much.
Yeah, there's so much information.
There's so much information and just new stuff, new trends. One of the ones that I actually really love is we did this last weekend, is where traditionally the bridesmaids are on the left and the groomsmen are on the right. Last weekend we switched those.
Yeah.
So that where the placement of the mother of the bride and the mother of the groom are, traditionally they're kind of behind their son or daughter. But when you switch that, they can actually see the front of them and see their faces. So that's a neat one that I really like.
I didn't even know. I had no idea about that. Did you know that? You studied that?
No, but as she's talking about it, I'm thinking of the weddings that I've been to, and it's always like that.
The photographer basically coordinates all that, right? Or you do that.
The seating?
Yeah. Or
I do that.
Oh, you do that?
Yeah.
Oh.
Ooh, yeah. Let's get into that a little bit. How do you know is there sometimes requests where someone wants to get right up to the front, but they should be like row 10?
So I have a form that I send out, and it does have, in the first 2 rows, who would you like there?
Mm-hmm.
We go over family dynamics. Can dad sit next to stepdad? Yes or no. Let's go ahead and dive into your family dynamics, where we need to sit people to make sure that everybody's comfortable. 9 out of 10 times everybody's amicable and everything's fine. But that's kind of how we approach that as far as the VIP rows.
Sweet.
And ushers are still walking people down the aisle to their seat.
Sometimes.
Is that a thing? Because I was an usher once and I had no clue what I was doing, and it was always uncomfortable. And you generally would meet the woman, and then she would put her hand in your arm, and then the husband would walk behind, and then I would
hold your hand,
and I would just sometimes I'd run to the husband too, and they would both walk. But I was always just sitting there thinking, I hope I'm putting this person on the right side, because I have no clue who they are.
So kind of the old school way is where you had ushers just standing there to show guests to their seats.
Mm-hmm.
That has well faded out, at least for my weddings. I've never had anyone want to do that. We do assign ushers to seat grandparents and parents.
Yeah.
I stress heavily for anyone who is in the order of the processional, which includes ushers who are sitting grandparents and parents, they should be at the rehearsal. Is it the end of the world if they're not? No. But a rehearsal is meant for practicing. And if everybody's confident on the wedding day, it's, much more smooth.
Yeah. Nice. Are flower men becoming a thing now?
Ooh, and flower dogs, I've heard too.
Yeah, I've had a couple flower bros.
Yeah.
As they call them, flower bros, flower dudes.
Yep. With fanny packs.
Yep. The fanny pack, the sunglasses. I've had beer bearers.
Beer bearers.
I saw something. Yes,
out.
I've seen that.
Yes. So couples are, putting the fun into their weddings. Yeah, for sure. That. Yep. And then of course dogs. Everybody. Yeah. Not everybody, but lots of dogs that are incorporated into the wedding in some way, oftentimes.
Yeah. Nice.
And so if you're going to a wedding and you're planning how many hours to be there, and what's the time frame? So let's say 30 minutes of the reception, and then a 2-hour break in between, and then or maybe half an hour of the ceremony, 2-hour break, and then a reception that starts at 7 and goes all night, or goes till 1 a.m. or 11.
Well, so when I'm booked, it starts with my booking agreement. For my full planning package, you have me for up to 12 hours. There's only been one wedding that needed me for over 12 hours. It was then that I changed my contract terms to read that you get me for up to 12 hours. Mm-hmm. Having said that, we go over the whole timeline and all of that. I mean, I build the timeline based on their needs. So I've had some ceremonies that last 10 minutes, and then I've had one that lasted, over an hour. Those are things that we need to know. So we work with the officiant to determine how long is our ceremony going to be. Cocktail hour is generally an hour. Again, depends on the size of the bridal party. Depends on if the bride and the groom want to sneak away for a sunset session. Depends on if the bride and the groom want to have a private newlywed meal prior to their grand introduction. We need to work in time for that. And then the reception, typically, so from a wedding planner perspective, this is what I know to look for on the front end. Typically, your bar service is going to be 4 hours. The price that they give you is a 4-hour bar service. And so that's from your cocktail hour to the end of your reception. If you want to spill over into, a longer reception, then that's going to come with more fees. And we look at the budget.
Right.
So 6 to 10 then is a normal timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen people busting in like food real late night too. Is that like kind of keeping the party going, get the drunk snacks going, and then just rally?
Yep, I've had a few late night snacks. It depends on the caterer. I've had a caterer that went and picked up, McDoubles from McDonald's, Rush's Burgers. It kind of depends there on the caterer and if they're willing to
do that,
work with another restaurant, for liability purposes. I had my first caterer, not long ago say, no, if it's served, it has to be food that we cook, which is understandable, but it kind of.
Gotcha. In case like somebody gets sick.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
Mm-hmm. But I'm sure that the caterers that do, offer allow, the McDonald's burgers pickup or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they have something that they do behind the scenes with contracts and waivers, liability.
Yeah.
And how long are people normally dating before they call you and they're engaged?
I don't ask that question.
Really?
No, I always like to hear the engagement story. I love to hear the backstory and I love to see the pictures, I mean, that's where my heart is. I love it. Yeah. But I don't ask how long they've been dating.
What's the oldest couple that you've wed?
Oh, good question.
Any 70 or 80-year-olds in there?
She's going to know this if she hears this, and I'm not sure. But it was, she was a grandmother, was and is. Nice. So I'm assuming 60s.
Nice. So you didn't even ask age? No. Doesn't matter.
No.
Nice.
We ask way too many questions, personal questions of people.
Okay.
All right. I think that's it. Any guests that you think we should have on the podcast that you'd recommend, or anyone who's maybe starting a business or they have a business?
Oh gosh, so many to name. Sarah Williams, Lock Interiors. She's a local luxury interior designer. She would be great to have on the show. I'm actually a member in, I don't know if you've heard of BNI.
Yeah.
Business Networking International. Mm-hmm. I'm a member in a local chapter, and it is actually the biggest chapter in the United States.
What?
Here in little old Columbia. We meet on Thursdays for lunch.
Really?
At Stone River. Yes, we have 150 approximately business owners in that group. And gosh, if you need a list, a lot of them would be great to come on and talk about their businesses, because a lot of them are, new businesses who are getting started. Power of BNI, it's our jobs to support each other's businesses and refer each other's businesses and help each other grow.
Yeah.
We might need to have the person who organized that BNI to grow it to the biggest in the entire
Who does organize that? Is there who's the leader?
Her name is Shirley Town.
Shirley Town.
Mm-hmm. Shirley Town.
Last
She's
name
the regional
Town.
director.
Nice. Is it TOWNE?
Yes.
Just a waste of a letter.
And then where do you guys go? Where do you and your husband go for fun in Columbia?
Pre-baby. I will say right after we got married, boom, COVID hit. We moved into our home about a month before we got married. It was a lot going on the year of our wedding. But so as newlyweds, we were kind of stuck inside. So him being from Chapin, he kind of knows the area. Me, not so much. Even, as COVID faded out, I kind of just being busy, remained a homebody when at home. But there's a little Lazy Creek Tap House. We like to go there for a beer every now and again if it's a nice day. Our baby met Santa there, surprisingly.
Sweet.
at the tap house.
What's Santa doing here at the tap house? He should be working.
That's good stuff. Well, we appreciate you being on here. Maybe can you tell everyone once again where to find you and how to get a hold of you?
Eventfully Chic by Parris on Facebook or Instagram.
Perfect.
Great.
Here
We're here for the health of it.
for the health of it.